Right now there are 10 countries in the world that have the ultimate weapon. Ever wonder how they got it? Well, the path to joining the nuclear club isn't just one story. It's a whole collection of them. We're talking intense sagas of scientific genius, high-stakes spy games, and pure national survival. In this explainer, we're going to dive into the unique reason each nation decided it absolutely had to have the bomb.
So why go to all that trouble? Because for the nations that built it, the bomb is seen as the ultimate insurance policy. The quest for this weapon, it tells you everything about a country's deepest fears and its biggest ambitions. And you know what's crazy? The whole thing didn't start with a bang. Nope, it started with a quiet but very urgent letter. Yeah, that one letter basically fired the starting gun for the entire nuclear age. It kicked off a top-secret race against a truly terrifying threat, a race led by the United States that would, and I mean this literally, change the world forever.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1939. War is about to explode across Europe, and there's this chilling new fear that Nazi Germany could figure out how to weaponize the atom. So who writes to President Roosevelt to sound the alarm? None other than Albert Einstein. The American response was the Manhattan Project, an absolutely massive, secret effort. And in the desert of New Mexico in July 1945, they did it. They detonated the Trinity device. Less than a month later, bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It ended World War II for sure, but it also fired the first shot of a completely new and terrifying conflict, the Cold War.
So, did America get to keep this incredible power all to itself? Not a chance. That mushroom cloud was like a memo sent to the rest of the world. Its biggest rival, the Soviet Union, saw it and knew they had to scramble for a response. And America's key ally, Great Britain, started to wonder if it was being left out in the cold.
So you've got two very different approaches here. The US poured a staggering amount of resources into the science. But the Soviets, they had a shortcut: spies. An agent named Klaus Fuchs managed to get deep inside the Manhattan Project, feeding critical information straight back to Moscow. This was a total game changer. It allowed the Soviets to test their own bomb in 1949, years, and I mean years, ahead of what US intelligence ever thought was possible. But see, for the Soviets, just catching up wasn't good enough. They wanted to leap ahead and send a message, and that message was the Tsar Bomba. Detonated in 1961, this thing was the most powerful explosive ever created. Think about the Hiroshima bomb. Now multiply that power by 3,300. It's just mind-boggling. The Cold War arms race had officially reached a terrifying new level. Meanwhile, remember the British? Well, they were feeling pretty burned. Their scientists were huge help on the Manhattan Project, but right after the war, the US passed a law that just cut them out completely. For Britain, this was about pride, about staying in the big leagues. So what did they do? They decided, fine, we'll build our own. And they did, testing their first bomb in 1952. Okay, so the story starts to shift here. The next wave of countries to get the bomb, it wasn't really about the US-Soviet rivalry. For nations like France and China, this was all about one thing: sovereignty. It was about being independent from both Washington and Moscow. You have to understand, France's president at the time, Charles de Gaulle, he was fiercely independent. He basically said, France will never again depend on someone else for its survival. That was his whole force to Frappe idea. No more hiding under America's nuclear umbrella. They were going to build their own. And in 1960, they proved they could do it. Now, China's situation was really something else. They were caught between a rock and a hard place. Threatened by the US on one side, and after a major fallout by their former friends, the Soviets, on the other. They were totally alone. And here's the crazy ironic twist. The US practically handed them the key to their success. A brilliant scientist named Qian Su-sen, who had studied at MIT and Caltech, was deported from the US during the Red Scare. He went back to China, and well, he became the father of their bomb program, which succeeded in 1964. So, we've had the superpower race and the quest for independence. Now the whole game changes again. The new driver is intense. Local rivalries. Think of it like nuclear dominoes. Once one country in a region gets the bomb, the next one is almost guaranteed to follow. When it comes to secrets, Israel's program is probably at the top of the list. They have this policy of Amimat, or opacity. Basically, they'll never say they have nuclear weapons, but they'll never say they don't either. It was a huge secret for years, and honestly, the world might not have known for sure if it wasn't for this one guy in 1986, a technician named Mordechai Vanunu, who just walked out with photos and blew the whole thing wide open. If you want to see that domino effect in perfect action, look no further than South Asia. First, China gets the bomb after a war with India, which really spooks the Indians. A decade later, India tests its own device, calling it a peaceful nuclear explosion. Yeah, right. Pakistan, India's arch rival, hears this and they are not having it. For them, it's a code red. Finally, in 1998, India tests again. And what does Pakistan do? Just weeks later, they test their own. And just like that, one of the world's hottest rivalries went nuclear.
And their determination was absolute. You have to hear this quote from Pakistan's prime minister at the time, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. It tells you everything you need to know about their mindset. Their quest got a huge boost from a scientist named A.Q. Khan, who, let's just say, he acquired some very important designs from Europe. For Pakistan, this wasn't a choice. It was survival.
All right, that brings us pretty much up to the modern era. And today, the story is really a tale of two countries on completely opposite tracks. One is building its arsenal in defiance of the whole world, and the other chose to give its weapons up entirely. Let's talk about North Korea. In 2003, they did something no one else had done. They just walked away from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, the big global agreement to stop the spread of nukes. It was a clear signal. Despite all the sanctions, they tested their first device in 2006. And from the Kim regime's point of view, you just have to look at what happened to leaders who didn't have nukes, like Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi. For them, the bomb is the only ironclad guarantee of survival, period. And then you have the complete opposite story, a story that has literally only happened once. South Africa, under the apartheid regime, secretly built 6 nuclear bombs. But as that government was about to fall in the early 90s, they made an incredible decision. The white minority government decided to dismantle its entire program, making sure the incoming democratic government led by Nelson Mandela wouldn't inherit them. To this day, South Africa is the only country in history to build the bomb and then just give it up. So you see, from the American race against a shadowy threat to Pakistan's fear of its neighbor, every nation had its reasons. It's a story of human genius and fear and the relentless pursuit of power. But as the nuclear club has grown, it leaves all of us with one giant question. Are these weapons really a path to security? Or are we all just living on borrowed time?